A very good evening and namaste, and welcome right back to all our viewers to the Solonian channel, the Singhania School YouTube Live, which is a platform of the Solonians, for the Solonians, and by the Solonians. साहस धीरज के हम साथी, धर्म कर्म भी साथ हमारे, मेहनत है कानून हमारा, एक रहेंगे मिलकर सारे. There is not a single Solonian who walks this earth and does not resonate to these first few lines of the school song, our very own Solonian school anthem. As we sing this along sincerely and very dedicatedly, most of us and every single one of us in school has come to live this anthem in our very own way. There is one such ex-Solonian, a pass out of the 1994 batch, who's here with us today as our guest, who has probably lived this anthem every single waking minute of his professional life in the last few decades. And it is an absolute privilege and honor to welcome here today Lieutenant Colonel Omar Pathare. It's an absolute honor to have Sir speak to us and bust a few myths about what it means to be working and serving in the country's defense forces, which is not just a very privileged and a coveted job line to pursue, but a job that is extremely gratifying and very satisfying. Omar sir probably has been that Solonian and that Indian who has no idea that you or me or any of us have walked this earth in all these years, but has still defended the borders of our country and done his duty very diligently for all of us. And on that note, I very warmly welcome Lieutenant Colonel Omar Pathare to the Solonian platform. Welcome, sir. Over to you.
Uh, okay. Thank you very much for having me. I've been, so I'm Omar from the 94 batch. I've had the honor of being selected through the NDA to serve the Indian Army in the infantry of and have worked for 15 years with the Sikh regiment. I have been in the Operation Parakram and thereafter subsequently have had my experiences both in peace and field wherever the army has sent me. I have successfully completed 15 and a half years of service, and thereafter now I'm here back to my home ground where I have initially initiated myself in helping other people also go to the way of the forces. Anybody who wants, I mentor people in order to get them into a better frame of mind in order to join the prestigious defense forces. Now we shall go as to what my journey was as a Solonian and thereafter going forward and becoming an officer in the Indian Army. Ankit, can you please start the PPT? As you can see, the journey began as a proud Solonian. I was a regular person, a small, normal guy who was shy, who loved to draw, who hated maths actually, and loved to play on the grounds. The ground near the school now, I mean the school gate, was our favorite grounds. I used to sleep in class. I loved English. I loved history. I loved geography. I hated maths. Now I was a bundle of all, complexities, or you can say paradoxes. Till around sixth or seventh, I went to a local library or a Raddiwala, what you can call it, who used to keep certain books. And it was summer vacations, and thereafter I got hooked onto a small booklet known as the Commando series. The Commando series was from it was a British publication which used to be read by many people that time, and then it used to go and fall into the newspaper wala, old used newspaper wala shop. I started reading from there, and as a Ceylonian during my summer vacations, I got hooked onto those stories of World War II. Thereafter, I told my mother that I want to join the army. It was a shocker, as my mother never expected me to be giving something such an extreme step. Nonetheless, after telling my mind in my seventh standard, my mother hoped that I would change my stance till 10th. But as soon as the ninth standard approached, I again told my mother that yes, I will be going into the army and I will have no discussions about it. My mother scouted for options where she did not want her son to be separated from her. But then, with a heavy heart, she did find out a Services Preparatory Institute, which was based in Aurangabad, which allowed me to go to prepare myself for the Indian Army and as well as study 11th and 12th in Aurangabad. Next slide, please. This is the Services Preparatory Institute at Aurangabad. As you can see, all Maharashtrian domiciled kids were interviewed as well as they had a written paper which they had to sit for in order to be selected to this institution. This institution went on for 2 years. In 2 years, while we were doing the science stream of 11th and 12th from the government college, in this institution, they started training us for the Union Public Services Commission examination as well as the Services Selection Board exam. Now, for the whole part of 11th and 12th, we were constantly given uh, training for physical, that is in physical education as well as sports in order to build ourselves physically. Second, we were also given classes which honed up in our subjects, which were history, uh, social sciences, English, as well as maths, physics, chemistry, and bio for the UPSC examination. Constant upgradation of our general knowledge was a must. So we had a small, big library which our director kept us going to go to. After clearing my 12th as well as the Union Public Services examination and my SSB interview, I went on to the National Defense Academy as an Army cadet. Please, can I have the next slide? Now this is at National Defense Academy. As you can see, the khaki dress was our uniform for 3 years. This uniform we used to wear for our classes and throughout the day. Thereafter, I had gone in as an army cadet because I wanted to join the army. There you can see snippets of me and my friend going on for a practice camp in the night. And there you can see me jumping in the dhawa position, which most of you have seen Hrithik Roshan do in Lakshya. So this is actually what a dhawa position looks like in real life. As soon as I graduated, you can see on the far right that I have my graduation certificate from the Jawaharlal Nehru University as a Bachelor of Arts, which I got on my passing out of the National Defense Academy. Thereafter, next slide please. I joined the Indian Military Academy at Dehradun. Now this is seen as a finishing institution for all army cadets or for the Indian Army. You can see that I had a great time out there. It was intense training where we learned small skills on how to lead men of section and platoon level. You can see I'm wearing, you can see my photo, wearing a helmet and a combat dress and just jumped out of a parachute. Oh, yes, we had a lot of fun. We actually went for whitewater rafting. We had hack rides. That means we used to go on long pony rides on the Dehradun hills, Uttaranchal hillside. And plus, we had cycle treks where we used to go from Dehradun to Chandigarh and back, and as well as to Agra for para jumps. I passed out from the Indian Military Academy and joined my regiment, the infantry regiment, that was a Sikh regiment, as a lieutenant. On the right hand side, you can see me as a newly commissioned lieutenant on the passing out parade of IMA. Next slide, please. Thereafter, once I joined my infantry unit, which was the 10th Battalion, the Sikh regiment, I was given the task of learning with my troops. I was treated as one of them for a long time, where a senior subaltern taught me the ways of the battalion and how the battalion functions. Thereafter, as a lieutenant and as a captain, you can see I'm sitting on the right hand side, on the left hand side, you can see me wearing a black balaclava and sitting on the line of control in a bunker. There are on the downside where you can see me on the hills, that those are the Shamshabadi ranges, that is the northernmost tip of Jammu and Kashmir, and behind me is what we can see as Pakistan, that is the line of control which runs not as a boundary, not as a pillar, but as an imaginary line between two mountains. Thereafter, after finishing this stint of mine on the line of control, I underwent courses which are a mandatory part for any officers, credentials as well as education qualifications in the Indian Army. I earned my badges as an instructor in anti-tank guided missiles. Here you can see me as a captain with 3 stars on my shoulder and having the badge of and having the anti-tank missile badge as well as the instructor badge which is on top of it, having 2 crossed rifles. This was in Mau in Madhya Pradesh, where I was teaching infantry officers the nuances and the tactics of firing anti-tank guided missiles to destroy tanks. Thereafter, you can see me going across in Mizoram, where I qualified as well as taught nuances of counter-terrorism and jungle warfare to people, as well as became an instructor and taught it amongst units of Indian armies. Now, the last posting which I had was in Rajasthan, where you can see me sitting in a tracksuit in blue color. That was when I was a senior company commander with my unit, and there we took over training our troops during the peacetime activity. As they say, when you train hard in peace, you will sweat less in war. So this was my job for 15 and a half years. The major highlights which you have seen. Can we have the next slide, please? Today, as on date, I'm an entrepreneur who has his own security consultancy, as well as I have my own mentorship for people who are aspiring to go to the armed forces, getting them aligned psychologically and emotionally towards the nuances of this very exciting career. Thank you. Now, can we go to the next PPT? Now we shall come on to the basic structure of the Indian Armed Forces. Now, we have three parts in this defense forces. One is obviously the land, the air, and the sea. To understand what this is all about, because we have seen only snippets when it comes to movies. We only know that there is one commando who goes everywhere, right? We only know there's one fighter pilot who will do all the action. We know there's a captain of a ship who will give all the orders. But no, there are n number of things which make these three services run. And all of you can join any one of this. It need not be that you have to be on the field every time, because a person fighting on the field also requires 10 people to help him support his fight. To that extent, let us see what is the structure of these three defense forces? Can we have the next slide, please? Now here you can see we have three arms of the Indian Defence Forces. One is the Army, second is the Navy, and third is the Air Force. Now, in a broad-based scenario, these are the elements. That is for the Army, there is the infantry, artillery, armored, signals, air defense, engineers. The EME is the electrical mechanical engineers, supply and ordnance. The Navy has the surface Navy, that means ships. The subsurface means submarines. Naval aviations, you got the naval planes moving around, which are from fighter planes to transport planes to reconnaissance or early warning planes. You got the signals, which is the essential part, how the two ships need to communicate with each other as also with the land. You got mechanical workshops, you got supply, where you need food for the soldiers and clothing, and you got ordnance. You require big guns. The big guns need big shells to fire. So that's the ordnance which comes from. The Air Force has major four parts based on their equipment profile. That means the fighters. We all know about of Su-30s coming, Sukhoi 30s and MiG-29s, which are the main backbone of our Air Force. You got transport. We have the big, gigantic planes which can carry tanks and troops from one end of the country to another end of another country. You got helicopters, which not only carry men and material, but also are fighter helicopters, which can destroy tanks. The newest element which has come into the Air Force is unmanned aerial vehicles. If you've seen for planes being remote controlled planes, which you used to play for fun, the same principle is used for these unmanned aerial vehicles, which with cameras on top, on board, they can patrol the borders of our country while people manning them or controlling them are sitting in secure locations within the country. Next slide, please. Now, after understanding that these three are the mainstays of our Indian defense forces, I will move forward in debunking some of the myths which are there with many of our parents, and of course with many of our students, youngsters also believe that there are certain things which might be there, might not be there in the armed forces. It is true, the Indian defense forces are clouded in a shroud of secrecy, and that is for a variety of reasons, which is essential to keep the integrity of our nation and our battle readiness, at a secret from the enemy. The enemy does not necessarily mean that he's on the border. Like Osama bin Laden actually taught us that a terrorist can be anybody who looks like a normal shepherd, or he can look like an IT computer engineer. Thereafter, the army has kept many layers of secrecy for itself. But I would like to debunk certain myths which follow among the normal people, that this is what the forces is all about. So let's go forward and get some things straight. Now, the myth number one is urban children are ill suited to join the forces. That is not the case. I have been an urban child. I was a spoiled child. I used to eat chocolates. Okay. So it's not that. What the army or the forces wants is a continuous resolve and an inclination to be a part of that fraternity. If you have been forced by your parents to go and join there, you will never be happy unless the fire comes from within. You should be able to want to join for yourself. See, and understand one thing, not everybody, okay, gets combat. You may want to join, you may just falter in the middle, but you form a part of the fraternity, which is either on the front fighting or is a behind who's giving support to them to win the war. As an urban person, as an urban child, you are also in the race to join the forces. It is not necessary that you are too soft for the military. The military gets you in, prepares you as they want you, and they make you into perfect fighting machine. So please do not keep it in mind. Please do not have it in mind that you will never be able to go into the military. The next myth, please. Girls cannot join the defense forces. This has been a long long-standing issue within the military initially and thereafter in the society that the girls cannot do it. uh, I mean, I of the opinion is that no, we have a lot of women officers on board in the armed forces. Women have gone as fighter pilots now. They've taken over as fighter pilots. Women have already been flying helicopters and transport planes for a long time. Women officers have been extensively on the front line as engineers. They have been building bridges, breaching minefields, as also they have been in supplies and logistics initially. They have not been taken on the infantry or the armored regiments or the artillery regiments because of the inhospitable terrains where they are deployed. But otherwise, as doctors, as other professionals, they are already into the armed forces by scores. So do not be, disheartened that army will never take you. Army will take you. Army requires young blood, and if the woman has got the gumption to go into it, they will definitely select her. Myth number 3, please. Defense forces have limited career branches and options. No, defense forces has a multitude of options. See, please understand that the armed forces is a different world and altogether. How many army officers, army jawans do you see in regular life? Very less. In fact, we do not see them at all. They are always restricted to cantonments. Now, these cantonments themselves are inbuilt cities where they have living quarters, offices, they've got garages, they've got n number of things where they've got training grounds, they've got schools for children, they've got their own training schools. They are a different world in itself, which absolutely is not shown outside to all of us for certain security reasons. But within that world, please understand it's like a big city running. So in a city, you require a mayor, you also require an engineer, you require a person to lay the roads, you require a person to maintain the buildings, you require a signal person who gives you good telecommunication. So when you go in for an armed force, you have a variety of options, right from being an infantryman to a signal officer who handles high frequency radio equipment, to secrecy devices, to being engineers, to be building bridges and breaching minefields for that matter, or building bunkers on the line of control, to be a tankman who can actually successfully move around with tanks in the vast deserts of Rajasthan. You can also be a para commando who can go across and destroy enemy camps, which happened just after the Uri attack. So, immense scope is there once you decide to join the forces, be it Army, Navy, or Air Force. So, please keep that in mind. Can we have the next myth, please? They say defense forces does not allow you access to family. That is not true at all. For the robustness of and the mental and the physical robustness of any soldier or an officer, he has to be in touch with his family. A man, the defense forces, this, it puts itself out there to mentally train a man, but in the end, to have the human touch, which all the three forces operate on. They may be strong as steel and best in their jobs, but they still retain a human touch. Therefore, you are always having a touch with your family. During service, you are allowed to go on leave. There are cantonments where you are allowed to bring your families. At times, if you are not married and you have very ill parents in your you have ill parents at your home, you can actually bring your parents to your place of work and they are taken care of by the military hospitals. So, access to family is access to family is always there, but of course, it cannot be continuous like what we have here. But in parts, you are allowed to take care of your family. The defense per services per se accepts you as one big part of the family, and your family also gets absorbed into it subsequently. Next myth, please. Defense forces actually, after a certain time, once you are in the defense forces, you come to know that you are slowly learning the life lessons required in the civilian milieu. We've got managers who take over operations. We've got managers who take over administration. We have managers who are into human relations. Now, all these things are rolled into one by the defense forces. A young lieutenant or a young captain handling 10 people under him will be so actively involved in them that he knows what are the names of them, what are their spouses and families' names, their children's names, what each person is doing, what are his traits, what do they, how are they in good in career progression, or what do they want to be ahead. Now, when you go in depth into this type of a personnel management, you become excellent managers as in human resources as well as property and administrative issues. So after coming out of the defense forces, you are have the confidence, you have the knowledge that you can fit into any of the corporate jobs easily. So if anybody says that if I go into the defense forces and I wish to come out at a later stage, you have a sea of opportunity. Why? Because the defense forces are coveted when they come out because of their discipline, their regularized regimen, and their work style, their no nonsense attitude, and they do not at times actually shoot straight from the hip when it comes to giving orders, laying out procedures, and taking and making plans, which always helps in the outside value because meeting deadlines is something what defense personnel know how to do it on the dot. Next, please. Defense forces do not prepare you for the world outside. I would say it is converse. Here, we lose in the civil milieu, we tend to lose a lot of time going out and about, learning by our mistakes. In defense forces, we cannot afford to make mistakes because mistakes cost human life. It costs property of the government of India, which we are told to protect. We cannot afford to lose an inch of land because that is our country's land. So when in the defense forces, you learn a lot of things that you are handling somebody else's property. You cannot be callous about it. You cannot be selfish about it. You cannot misuse it. So once you come outside, you have got the life skills to take care of not only your belongings or your property and your world matters, but others also. So whenever, if you see a person taking having a job who's a defense officer, he will be looking at holistically at a company's point of view. A business manager of a company or what do you say corporate company who is a defense officer will be looking at the company as a whole. It will not be looking for himself. He'll not be looking only for himself. He'll be looking around for his juniors, his colleagues, his seniors, and the company as a whole. So when he starts taking everybody along, everybody prospers. This is what the defense forces teaches you on a very large scale, and this helps us when we come out for after we retire from the forces. Next, defense forces is all about combat, no, and the ultimate sacrifice. No, it is not so. It is not so. I'll give you a very simple example that in a study conducted last year, the number of people who die by roadside accidents are much more larger than the amount of soldiers or officers who die on the borders. So, if you're going into the defense forces, you're not going to go and get killed. They prepare the army, navy, and air force prepare you to go into these situations and not run away from them. That is a different thing, but they will not put you into situations every time this thing arises. Whenever you are into the situation, you're trained good enough to be able to get yourself and your men out of that situation as well as win over the situation to our own benefit. So, yes, though the main medium is about combat, there are not many wars happening. There are not many terrorists who are coming every day out and killing you or threatening you. And there are not every time you move out in the field, there's no bullet with a name waiting for you to get killed. So the level of danger which is perceived by many people out here. The level of danger is not there. We are talking about the danger to being 5% max to max. Right now, which we saw about the in the last 2 3 days, what you've seen a situation unfolding in the line of actual control near the China border was something which happens after a very long time, and that too it happened because it was a one-to-one confrontation between both sides. And there also our people gave it back by getting those guys, I mean, hurting them and killing them by a greater number than us. So that is what the army teaches you about. There was a colonel on ground with his men who actually disposed of double the strength of his people, double the strength of, I mean, double the enemy, double his strength. And that is what the ultimate sacrifice he proposed in accomplishing a mission and keeping the borders safe. Next, please. So to the sky, dive into a sea of experience, conquer the world. Defense forces fills into you that level of confidence that you can take over the world, take on the world with any for any challenge and any difficulty. You will not feel after coming out of the forces or being in the forces that any mountain is too big or any valley is too deep. Defense forces, they say it makes a man out of you. Yes, it does. It makes you a man who's able to take on the world without blinking of an eye. It does not mean that the man will rush into things. He's calm, collected, well thought about, well read, well mannered, and he knows what he's doing. Every mission or every work he picks up, he endeavors to make it a success, and he does it. That is what is the Army, Navy, and Air Force for you. Thank you very much for watching. Can I have the next questions, please? Hello. Okay, the first question is, we've heard the defense life is very tough. What motivated you to take up this hard route? Whenever you're going into the defense part of it, you do not know, you're not looking at life is easy or life is hard. When nobody goes the hard route, it's the adventure which pulls you. I wanted to serve the country. That's about it. I wanted to serve the country. Now, it I did not know what the cost was, but the cost was whatever it was, I was going to go for it. Therefore, when I sat up on that in the bunker at 21,000 feet in line of control, I did not think about hardships. I did not think about, I cannot go home for the next 6 months. Going home, it's going to take 7 days to reach. I mean, from that post to reaching Thane would take 7 days by air, by train, everything. But I did not think of this because the hardship part does not remain. We do not think about hardship. For us, everything is an achievement. I wanted to be there. I wanted to do my bit for the country. For however you think it was hard or easy, no, I thought it was my bit and I owed it to my country. So that motivation kept me going for a long time. Okay, as you asked, as you've asked, when it comes to the military, there is a lot of stigma about being a big commitment, about people having to lose their lives for the country. How do you think this stigma will be eradicated, sir? Ultimate sacrifice. What happens in a fight? In a fight, somebody wins, somebody loses. There cannot be a dead mate or a stalemate. So there is no stigma. The stigma is what you bear in your mind. My grandmother did not want me to join. She said, why does he want to live a cushy life? She was afraid for my life. Life is going to go some or the other way. The point, when you look at defense and when you lose a life, or when you have the supreme, have you conduct the supreme sacrifice, fighting militants or on the border, you have not given up your life in vain. You have given it up for a cause. When you look at it, joining the defense forces for for defending our nation, that is a justified cause for you to be there. See, frankly speaking, when you see, it's not so bad. When you defense forces, because it's shrouded in secrecy, we all have great fun. By the way, we have our games, we have intergame competitions, we have combat competitions, we have parties going on, we have a decorum where we allow people to actually follow the pursuits. I've got a friend who's actually a great saxophonist, and he keeps on, trying off his bits and sharing it with us. You got talent hunts which go within the army. Where do you think Miss Worlds have come from? Sushmita Sen. And you've got Gul Panag. Gul Panag comes from is General Panag's daughter, by the way. So the talent, there's a lot of good fun going around rather than being the seriousness or the serious stereotypical stiffness of the armed forces. Okay, I'll take on the third question. Please tell us something about the experiences the soldiers go through at the border. Right. The, when you're on the line of control or on the border, you are mentally prepared to stay there and guard the border for a period of 6 to 8 months at a go. That means you will be sitting in bunkers or defended localities, what you call, made of mortar and stone or sandbags. At times, dug up under the ground or made of logs. You shall be moving around at designated points in patrolling yourself or looking out for enemy movements. There are n number of times you're sitting down in gullies waiting for militants to cross over. At times, there are going to be times when you have been sitting in 4 feet or 5 feet snow. There are chilly winds. You have to navigate yourself to dense conifer forests. Yes, life is lonely, but what happens? We have a very strict routine which keeps that loneliness or homesickness off. We also have our own camaraderie which goes on. We have our small meetings, we have our Josh talks which go on with our troops, and generally, because of one-to-one interaction with troops, they do not treat us standoffish, and like we become one of their friends. But yes, with a border, with a small space that they know that we are an officer and they're the Jawans. And when there's an order, they will fall in line and conduct an operation as the officer tells them. What is ideal? Okay. What is an ideal age to start preparing to get into the defense forces? Okay. So ideal age for preparation. Now there are two things. You've got preparatory schools like the school which I went, which I started from 11th and 12th. Now 11th and 12th would be an ideal age for you to understand what is the Union Public Service Commission all about. You've got people after generally after 11th and 12th. 12th is where you give the Union UPSC examination to go into NDA. Thereafter, you can also give the examination as a Combined Defense Services examination, which allows you after post graduation to go into Indian Military Academy, Air Force Academy at Hakimpet, or the Naval Academy at Mandvi, Goa. So these are post graduation courses. When you go in for National Defense Academy, these are pre-graduation courses where you do the graduation along with military training. So it's a variable choice. When do you want to join? Do you want to go straight out of junior college into the academy, or you want to finish college? You have to finish 3 years of BSc or BA, and then you want to join. There are also short service commission entries which come after postgrad. So where they have done a bit of jobs, or they have had a bit of experience outside in hotel management, or they have been on the engineering field for a couple of years, and then they have joined. So there also you can come in, but that comes as a short service tenure where you go to Officers Training Academy, Chennai. Yes, height. Yes, yes, they do. Are there any special criteria that are uh, considered before one joins the forces, like spectacles and height? Yes, Spectacles actually, yes, they are considered. There are various, what do you say, spectacles. When it comes to spectacles, 0.25 has been, the last known was acceptable to the army. Air Force, you cannot afford spectacles because you'll be flying. And even with helicopters, you cannot afford it because there's some, because you are handling a very costly piece of equipment. Even with the navy, they are very rigid when it comes to eyesight. Eyesight has to be 6 by 6 in both eyes. Plus, you have to see that you're not colorblind because many people are always looking up to that. I want to, I know, I see everything, but instead they might be being colorblind themselves. So you have to be, the eyesight being very important. You have to see yourselves in that grid. Height, anything from 5'2" and above. Okay, it's great. And as it is, you nowadays all of you kids are taller than us. When I joined, I was 5'4". I was 5'4" when I joined NDA. So you can believe it. Anything above than that. I got a friend who was 5'2", who right now flies an army chopper. So 5'2" and above is great for anybody joining any of the forces. What do you advise? A short service commission or the NDA? Also, what would be your advice for parents who are skeptical of the army? Two things. Parents, do you want to send your ward into the army? Number one, if you want to send him, you should take a step back. If the ward wants to join the army, you should have a dialogue with him. You should not feel that army is something which is unachievable or is something totally alien to you. It is very much our own countrymen coming together and defending our borders. So you should not be skeptical that your son will be lost. In fact, your son is going up for a much more bigger cause. He's serving the nation. What bigger cause can a person get into do in his life? Second thing, advice for short service or the NDA. NDA anytime, because what NDA does, it prepares you thoroughly for your long life in the army. Once you go into the NDA, it grooms you throughout for the forces. Incidentally, throughout our armed forces, the history of armed forces, all the chiefs of all the three services, including Army, Navy, Air Force, are always ex-NDAs. Nobody comes from a direct entry after postgrad. All these chiefs always are ex-NDAs. So keeping that in mind, NDA has always been the best option. Sucheta Mitra, you ask, how does one interested in joining the military truly decide which service they should join? It really depends upon what do you want to do. Do you like a field job? Do you like running around? Do you like a desk job? See, army is going to have a balance of both. An infantryman like me had to sit in the offices and make the payroll of my jawans. Also, I had to go into a bunker and look out for enemies who are trying to cross our borders. So it is a mix and match for both. You will never have a desk job or a field job. You will have a mix of both. In the peace, you have a lot of desk job. In the field, you're always moving through the jungles. So it's a healthy mix of both. So you have to understand that which service do you want to join depending upon, do you want a field or a desk job. I would suggest, what do you like to do? I like the infantry because it gave me the thrill of going into a war. Do you have a thrill of building bridges? Then you can join the engineers. Do you like to tinker along with signal circuits? You can join the signals. Do you like big guns? You can join the artillery. So this is a totally personal mental makeup of person, which tells him to go into which arm of the armed forces. Okay, question number 6. What are the top defense institution courses to aspire for senior roles in defense? Any exams for high level processes to plan for? Now, top defense institute for senior roles in the defense. Senior roles comes from you. They catch you young and they watch you grow. As a senior person, You become seniority comes, it is earned by being in the organization, from a lieutenant to a captain, captain to a major, major to a lieutenant colonel, colonel, brigadier, major general, lieutenant general, and the general. So you cannot be inserted in the middle management or the mid level. You have to start from wearing the two ranks, that is the lieutenant ranks, and rise ahead. For that, if you want to jump ahead or not go into institutions like NDA, you can go into finishing academies after finishing your graduation. So you have not lost touch with your civilian education, and thereafter go in for a 2 year training and then be commissioned as an officer. So there are this, from there only you start your journey in the armed forces. If you think that you can be taken in as a colonel or a brigadier, that would be very difficult, because that no there is no lateral entry for those. You always go from down up. You will never be got in between to command these people. So now Janvi Deshmukh asks, what is the best part about being able to serve your country? It's the feeling, Janvi. It's the total feeling. You are, when you stand there on that border, you got a valley separating you and Pakistan. And every time you look at it, and every day after the sun sets, no enemy has passed through your area of responsibility. And every day you get a report of nothing to report. That means all is well. You have a very satisfied feeling that you have been able to keep that small piece of land secure for your countrymen who are sleeping back at their homes. It's a feeling which comes, it's an overwhelming feeling. It cannot when if I come whenever I used to come back and try to tell my mother couldn't understand it, because it has to be lived. You have to be on that place, you have to see that place, you have to feel when when everything is normal at a line of control, and when you go back to when you go back to your bunker by the end of the day, and yes, one day successful, that feeling is totally amazing. Okay, how do soldiers, Arya Anil Kumar asks, how do soldiers deal with the trauma that they may ensure? Soldiers are made mentally strong in their respectable regimental training centers. Like for officers, we have the National Defense Academy, Indian Military Academy. The Jawans have regimental training centers where they are not only they have made physically strong, but mentally also they are made where they are toughened up. If you've seen Bhag Milkha Bhag, you have seen Milkha Singh going through the rigors of a Jawan. So that is where they make themselves stronger and mentally tough. So whenever they go into the field, they are morally very high, as well as they are pumped up to stand up for their country. For them, the battalion becomes the sole point of honor. So Nam Namak Nishan is something what these people stand for, and that is how they live up. They don't face any trauma. Risha asks, how important is it to be disciplined, and how did your military training help achieve it? It imbibes in you. Discipline is imbibed in you. I was a very naughty boy. Okay, Risha, when I was in school, I was a totally naughty boy. But once I joined these forces, they make discipline a second nature to you. As on date, I know how much time I can take to finish a work, how much time I can take to reach a certain place. Now this comes over a period of time through training, through being on the job, being with the unit, on and off. So the time management, what you can call it, being punctual, that all comes within you. Okay, and it's the way military functions. It imbibes it in you, and thereafter it becomes second nature. Himangi Sarode. Apart from the soldiers, there are other people working in the forces like medical staff, paramilitary staff, psychologists. Can you throw me? Can you throw some light on the way they can join? Okay. Hi, Himangi. So, yes, these are support elements which the fighting forces sorely require. Yes. Now, when we talk about medical staff, we have the Armed Forces Medical Center in Pune, where after first of all you can join it like before you go like NDA. just after just after you finish your 12th, and you go in a normal MBBS pattern with the Armed Forces Medical College being your basis for getting a doctor's degree. You can also join after finishing your doctor's degree. Again, you go to Pune. Now, since AFMC is based in Pune, near Khadki, so you can join in on a different capacity, like a direct entry. You have finished your education, doctor's degree from outside, and then you give an examination. You have an SSB interview, and then they take you in the FMC for military training. All these doctors, the Armed Forces Medical College, actually trains you in the medical aspect as well as the army training aspect for being able to be there with the armed forces in field times as well as in peace times. So AFMC is the main goal for medical aspirants who want to join the armed forces. Adya Agarwal asked, can you tell us about careers in military psychology? Okay, there are two things. If you want to join as an officer, now an officer can join through the AFMC and opt as psychology as a subject when he's due to become a doctor. The second thing is there is an in Delhi there is an institute which is a government institute which goes in for which delves upon psychological studies. You can go there, but then of course you will not be with the armed forces. You will be working for the government of India. However, many papers pertaining to human stress levels or uh, trauma levels after getting wounded come over to those persons to be written or to be given a policy update on or to write down policy regulations and outlines. So you have to understand that these two persons you can do. The best way to become is join the FMC, become a psychologist or a psychiatrist, and you can have a career in the army in the olive greens. Okay. Ria asks, how can we encourage young girls in our nation to join the defense forces? Uh, Ria, why do we want to see? It's a very personal choice. Joining of a defense force is a very personal choice. You have to have it in you. You want to join it, you will join it. You cannot force anybody to join the force because it's a very personal choice. I used to read books, but I ended up reading books at 15,000 feet with 400 meters of an enemy post in front of me. It's a totally different personal choice. You cannot force people. It has to come from within. That is why, if you remember, there was an army campaign which started in between. Do you have it in you? When it comes from within, you will be able to actually chart a way toward joining the armed forces and be very happy in the career path you've chosen. Okay, Rishita asks, can you tell us about defense journalism as a career? Rishita, there is, okay, Army does not have journalism as one of its verticals. And journalism is something which, of course, my wife is a journalist, so she'll be able to guide you more. She's also an ex-Salonian, so I hope ma'am can keep a session of hers. But journalism per se is very restricted in armed forces. We do not believe in letting out what we do into the civilian milieu. Now, this I would call it civilian because that's how the differentiation starts. Information sharing is very restricted. So, journalism per se, all the journalists or all the newspapers get a statement from the armed forces. This is specifically done to keep the secrets intact of our nation as well as the working of the armed forces. If these secrets get out, many threat level actors or many adversaries or even the enemy countries will know what our army is up to, and we may face a lot of humiliation by facing losses on our borders. So, as a journalist, you can go in a role from a certain daily or newspaper who will send you to the field to capture certain news about how an army functions. But there are no defense correspondents, or there's no job as a defense correspondent from the army side. Army deals with the journalist through a public relations officer who himself is an army officer, not a journalist. Aryan asks, Sir, do you think the number of enrollments in the forces has been decreasing through the years? Absolutely, they have been decreasing because we have had a lot of shortages. We still have a shortage of young, capable officers joining the forces. It's a mindset, Aryan. Do you want to join it? See, our country is one of those few countries who does not believe in enlisting or compulsory military service because they believe in keeping the quality of men and officers to the optimum or in the prime. If we can have a 2 year or 3 year old stint in the army would dilute the quality. As on date, the sacrifices or all you can see the people, the armed forces people keeping the border secure is because of the stringent levels of selection which go through in getting a person as a youngster and then making him into an officer. So therefore, you have to understand that yes, we have a lot of shortage in the armed forces, but that is because the perception of a person who wants to join the armed forces has to come from within. We can only show you what the life in the army is. We cannot make you an army officer if you don't want to be an army officer. But yeah, ask what is one valuable life lesson you've learned from your time in the defense forces? Okay, now you always bounce back. You are never put down, Ria. Okay, life can throw you anything. Life can throw you any curveball. You can just bat them out of the stadium. That is what life, it teaches you. See, for me, I follow these three words. I'm survival, I'm guts, I'm pride. So I got all these three things from the army, from the armed forces. So I can take on any challenge, even if as on date I'm in the civilian clothing. So that mental makeup has never gone and will never go, I believe. That's the one valuable, lesson, life lesson I've learned from the army. Okay, yes. So thank you, Ria, for asking me, and thank you. Absolutely, please do, ma'am. Good.
Wow, what a session! And so many myths busted, Omar sir. Thank you so much for speaking to all the Solonians. And to think that you have achieved all this under strict discipline and a crisp uniform. And to just understand from you that careers in defense can be really exciting, especially when you're playing from lack of adventure and danger. And when you're able to achieve that, it fills you with a different thrill altogether. It gives you a completely different happy high. Thank you so much for bringing all your knowledge to this platform and helping Solonians to understand what exactly they would be looking at when they say careers in defense. And I personally, on a very personal note, I think today is a Sunday evening and I'm going to start my class tomorrow on Monday morning by not saying good morning, how are you, but by asking my students, how's the Josh? And they better say hi. They have to say hi. There is no option there. Thank you so much for being on this platform. To all our viewers, as you already know, and we have said so, the Solonian platform, the Singhania School YouTube Live, is a Solonian platform which is of the Solonians, by the Solonians, and for the Solonians. And next week, stay tuned and keep that Josh high because we have our next guest coming up who will talk to us about opportunities in higher education in New Zealand. We will be joined by Mr. Warren straight from New Zealand. Until then, take very good care of yourself and if you're leaving home, not without your mask. And like I said, keep the Josh. Live your life with energy and enthusiasm. And on that note, thank you very much and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. God bless.